Good Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, Christmas parade horror. We're continuing to follow the latest out of Waukesha, Wisconsin this morning, where at least 5 people are now confirmed dead. Dozens more injured after an SUV drove through a holiday parade route there Sunday afternoon. Law enforcement officials now questioning a person of interest in the case. We'll hear from a witness of the horrifying events in just moments and bring you the latest on the investigation this morning. Final moments in Georgia this morning. Closing arguments are set to begin in the trial of 3 white men accused of murdering 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery while he was out for a jog in February of last year. The accusations of racism now being directed at one of the men's defense lawyers. We'll take you outside the courtroom. Plus, boosting the booster, the FDA and CDC clearing the way for that ever-important booster shot as we head into Thanksgiving week, one of the busiest travel periods of the year. We'll bring you the state of play from the highways to the skyways as infections begin to rise once again. And back on the green, legend of the links, Tiger Woods teeing up rumors of a comeback after tweeting this video Sunday of his first public appearance on the course since that devastating high-speed car crash back in February. An update on his condition as fans fawn over the star's return. And let's get right to that breaking news this morning out of Wisconsin. At least 5 people were killed and dozens more were injured after an SUV drove through a crowded holiday parade route in Waukesha.
Now, we want to warn you that some of the video is hard to watch. First, you can see the moment the red SUV actually drove through the parade and into the crowd. We've stopped the video right before the impact. And then this was the aftermath. You can see confusion and chaos as people screamed, trying to locate family members and friends. Let's listen to how a business owner near the parade described the scene.
We were just, using towels and things to help with trying to stop the bleeding and then there was a lot of, there was a number of band members who came in and they were in a very highly emotional state.
Now, as police work to piece together this tragedy, we're actually going to hear from someone who was there. We're joined now by Scott Greger, who was at the parade last night. Hopefully we have Scott here with us. Hopefully, Scott, you can hear us. Hey there, Scott. I'm so sorry for what you had to go through, for what you saw. First off, just how are you doing this morning?
Doing okay. Did not sleep very well this past evening. Just trying to make sure that all of the people that we know are safe. Thankfully, we are good friends with the band director that was one of the first impacted. Thankfully, she is personally safe, and we're just waiting to hear on the other band members as well.
Oh, absolutely. We're so happy to hear that about her. So walk us through what happened. Explain to us, if you can, kind of where you were along this parade route and what did you see?
Sure. So we actually, the picture you have right on the screen, we were right near that. It's called the 5 Points, and that is where 5 major streets converge, is kind of the center of the downtown. We were sitting across one of the streets that had been blocked off. And I had noticed a couple of police vehicles that were behind us and didn't think much of it, just wondering what was going on, especially given the fact that we had so many people downtown for the parade. I went through with the intersection behind us at a pretty high rate of speed, but wasn't sure what was going on. Definitely perked up as far as just kind of being situationally aware of that. And we continued watching the parade. The dancing grannies, which is always a favorite part of, went through, and a few other units went through, when all of a sudden a red SUV barreling very, very high rate of speed came down along the left side of one of the units, struck a pedestrian directly across from us, and continued on down the parade route, running into the back of a float that had just passed by. And after that, we were just trying to make sure that our family was safe and trying to get ourselves out of the situation as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. So you're saying that you noticed that police presence prior to actually seeing the SUV in the area?
That's correct. Yeah, I heard a couple of police vehicles that prior to seeing the SUV coming down the parade route.
Absolutely. And how's your community doing this morning?
We're hurting. I think the biggest impact, the number of kids, obviously it was a Christmas parade and everyone's excited to see that. And it was nearing the end of the parade route. Santa was within moments of coming down the parade route, and everyone was very excited for that and seeing the end. And this happened. So a lot of children, I really just ask people to pray for our community. Please pray for the students. Both my wife and I are educators, and that's going to be a severe and major impact on our students and trying to help them walk through this journey as educators.
Absolutely. Scott Greger, thank you for your time this morning. We're thinking about you and your community, giving you those prayers. I know you've lived there for most of your life, so thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you so much.
Now, for the latest on what happened in the investigation, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Megan Fitzgerald. So, Megan, you're at a children's hospital in Milwaukee where some victims are being treated. This tragedy happened in suburban Milwaukee. What more can you tell us about what happened and what witnesses are saying?
Well, I can tell you that just as Scott was saying, this is something that this community looks forward to every year. This Christmas parade didn't happen last year because of the pandemic. So people were excited to be out there and waiting to see Santa when all of a sudden this SUV comes plowing down the middle of this parade, taking out anyone in its path. I want you to listen to what one eyewitness told us earlier.
Must have been going, at least 40 to 50 miles an hour, just came through. And I saw, maybe 3 people right in front of me get hit. I saw people right away run to the people that were hit and start doing CPR. And I saw people on the ground, there's blood. And it was really bad.
Yeah, so there are a great deal of people that did walk away from this incident without injury, but you've got to imagine the trauma that's setting in. Young children excited to see Santa and instead have to see this tragedy unfold before their eyes, Joe.
So many people are wondering why this happened. So, Megan, what do we know about the driver of the SUV? I understand police do have a person of interest in custody, right?
That's absolutely right. So there is a person of interest in custody. They're not looking for anyone else. What law enforcement authorities are telling us at this hour is that this person was likely fleeing another incident that was related to some sort of a knife incident when they took off at a high rate of speed, just plowing through the middle of this parade. I want you to listen to what law enforcement had to say about this.
We're no longer looking for a suspect vehicle. We do have a person of interest in custody at the moment, but this is still a very fluid investigation.
So a lot of information here that we are waiting for, a lot of unanswered questions. But what we do know, what NBC News has confirmed, is that law enforcement officials tell us that this is not connected to terrorism and this is not in retaliation to the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, Joe.
And what about the victims? What's the information we have on them right now? And how about the many people who were injured? How are they doing?
So what we know, according to the Children's Hospital behind me here, 15 patients have been admitted here at least. We know more than 40 others have been injured. They're being treated at area hospitals. And right now, the death toll is at 5. Unfortunately, it's very possible that that number could rise throughout the day, as we know that there are several people in critical condition. I want to read you also, just coming in, this statement from the Archdiocese in this area. They say, quote, "Among the injured are one of our Catholic priests, as well as multiple parishioners and Catholic school children. Please join us in prayer for all those involved, their families, and those who are traumatized from witnessing this horrible scene." And that's exactly what it is. It's trauma for this community, excited to ring in the holiday season with Thanksgiving just days away, and now they are left mourning this morning. Joe?
We're thinking of all those families. Megan Fitzgerald reporting from Wisconsin. Thank you. This morning in Georgia, prosecutors and defense attorneys will deliver closing arguments in the trial of 3 white men accused of chasing down and killing Ahmaud Arbery. This follows 10 days of testimony, including last week's surprise appearance on the witness stand by defendant Travis McMichael. NBC News correspondent Cal Perry joins us now from Brunswick. So, Cal, big day in this trial as lawyers prepare to make their final cases to the jury, which is a predominantly white jury. So what can we expect, and what kind of message will both sides hope to get across to the jurors?
Look, I think from the prosecution, it's going to be more of what we heard last week. We saw the prosecutor who was able really to cut into the testimony from Travis McMichael. Travis McMichael, the man who actually pulled the trigger on that shotgun that killed Ahmaud Arbery. We saw her thundering away and able to get him to admit basically that there was no threat from Arbery, that he didn't say anything as he was being pursued. So I think you can expect more of the same on that front. Now, from the defense, that remains to be seen. We've heard a lot from this one defense attorney, Goff. He's been making a lot of outrageous comments. It'll be interesting to see if there are more motions or if we just hear closing statements from the defense. But certainly it seems like they have the most work to be done. Joe?
So, Cal, this all comes just days after we got the verdict in that other high-profile case. Kyle Rittenhouse was cleared of all charges in the Kenosha killings after claiming self-defense. The two cases are quite different, but is that verdict in Wisconsin casting a shadow where you are in Georgia?
Yeah, I think there's no question that sort of people are aware of that verdict. There was a concern here on the ground that the two could affect each other. I don't think that's the case. We will see closings again today. We have seen these sort of outrageous, outlandish comments from this one defense attorney, Goff, and I think that is what is hanging over a lot of this. Last week, there was a lot of talk again about black pastors. We had these comments made by Goff, and I think that is hanging over certainly a trial that already has so many shades of race to it, only being added to. Certainly, when you sort of look at the Rittenhouse case, that is where it would come into play. But I think people here are focusing on the closing and then giving it to the jury certainly before Thanksgiving, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, so what is the mood for the Arbery family right now ahead of the jury deliberations? What's their mood?
You know, we heard from the mother of Ahmaud Arbery last week. She's been sitting in the courtroom throughout the trial, and she said that there was actually floated from the prosecutors the idea of some kind of plea agreement. Now, for their part, the defense teams for the defendants are saying that that was not true. But certainly, if there is any optimism, I think you can read it in those statements. Joe?
All right, Cal Perry, we know to keep an eye on it. Thanks so much.
Turning now to the race to get more booster shots in the arms of Americans ahead of the holiday season. The CDC and the FDA have now authorized Pfizer and Moderna boosters for all vaccinated adults. The move comes as several states see an increase in COVID cases just as temperatures drop and people move indoors. NBC News Now correspondent Dasha Burns has the latest.
After more than a year and a half of virtual hugs, millions of Americans are preparing to embrace family and friends in person this Thanksgiving.
From the Biden family to yours, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
According to a Monmouth University poll, 2/3 of Americans are ditching the digital gatherings and plan to have a more traditional celebration. Large parties inside family homes, passing plates at the dinner table, clinking glasses. The first indoor holiday to look more like the pre-pandemic days. And the TSA expects travel to match, rebounding back to pre-COVID levels. But we're not yet in a post-COVID world. Infections are increasing again. A 20% rise in cases across the country over the last 2 weeks. The national vaccination rate now at 59%. But 62 million eligible Americans still haven't gotten the shot. Amid the rise in cases and the upcoming holiday, the FDA and CDC cleared the way for Pfizer and Moderna booster shots for all U.S. adults on Friday, recommending it for those over 50.
We have 11 yeses and 0 nos.
30 million Americans have already received a booster shot, but mixed messages during the initial rollout left others uncertain.
CDC speaks Latin. I can't figure out who's eligible. If you were vaccinated more than 6 months ago, now is the time and go get that booster.
A number of states had already authorized booster shots for all adults before the FDA and CDC's approval. Colorado and New Mexico going a step further with executive orders urging fully vaccinated adults to get boosters after both states saw significant increases in COVID infections and hospitalizations.
For folks sitting here watching right now thinking, should I get a booster? What is your medical advice? everyone over the age of 18 really should consider getting a booster. And then if you are above the age of 65, there is no question in my mind that this feels like it's a high priority, and that even as early as today, you should try to find out where to get a booster.
With experts suggesting boosters could become annual or even biannual, what it means to be fully vaccinated could change.
I think that if you fast forward even 6 months, we will likely need that booster to show that we completed the series. So this definition of fully immunized could evolve, and I think it will evolve.
All right, our thanks to Dasha Burns for that report.
Let's bring in Dr. Ahmaud Arbery, a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Good morning to you, Doctor. So Dr. Fauci gave some advice yesterday on how to celebrate the holidays safely. Here's what he had to say.
My recommendations to Americans to celebrate safely is get vaccinated as soon as you can. Obviously, if you're not vaccinated, you're in a situation where you're more vulnerable to getting infected. But for the people who are vaccinated, the people who can get boosted, enjoy your holiday season with your family, indoors, grandparents, children, do it. But be aware that when you are in a situation where you are traveling, for example, and you are in an indoor congregate setting and you don't know the vaccination status of people, you need to wear a mask.
Now, Dr. Fauci also added fully vaccinated people can celebrate the holiday without a mask. So what do you make of all his advice, and how concerned are you we could see a big rise in COVID cases after the Thanksgiving holiday?
I agree with what Dr. Fauci said. If you're a fully vaccinated person and you're interacting with other fully vaccinated individuals, I think you can enjoy Thanksgiving as if it was 2019. But what the concern is that there's unvaccinated individuals, and they're going to gather on Thanksgiving just like vaccinated individuals will. And we will likely see an increase in transmission with those high-risk indoor settings amongst the unvaccinated, especially as it's colder and people can't have their Thanksgiving outdoors. Remember, we're always going to have cases. It's the key thing is keeping the cases away from high-risk individuals so they don't end up in the hospitals and our hospitals go into crisis again. That's the key thing, is making sure those high-risk people are vaccinated.
Now, President Biden's vaccination mandate for federal workers goes into effect today, impacting about 4 million employees. We've seen how effective mandates like these can be, especially here where we are in New York. So what can we expect from this one as it finally goes into effect?
What we will see is more federal workers vaccinated, and I think this is something that we want to encourage. If you're the federal government and you're trying to make sure that your workforce is resilient, that your workplaces are safe, and that you can move on from the pandemic, making vaccination a condition of employment is something many employers should be doing. And I think the federal government made the right decision here. Hopefully more companies will do this as well. There is an OSHA mandate that's a little bit troubled and stalled, but I think in general, the idea of businesses thinking about vaccination as a way to be able to operate during a pandemic is a great one, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Doctor, over the weekend, the U.S. death toll for COVID 2021 officially passed last year's numbers. This is despite the fact we have 3 effective vaccines available to pretty much everyone. So what does that tell us about how we handled COVID this year, and what are your hopes that we're going to do a better job of containing COVID now in 2022?
To me, it's mind-boggling that we have a higher death toll when we've got 3 effective vaccines, effective treatments. And it tells you that this is actually willful. This is actually self-inflicted because many of those deaths are vaccine preventable. And I don't think any of us thought we would be in a situation where people would shun a vaccine that has been proven safe and effective and really change the way a person handles COVID-19. And I think this really speaks to the fact that we're going to have difficulties getting that group of people, those 60 million plus Americans who are not vaccinated. They are getting increasingly dug in, and the longer they stay that way, the more limbo we're going to be in with this pandemic.
Especially as we head into these winter months. All right, Dr. Ahmaud Arbery, as always, thank you so much.
As we were just talking about with Dr. Adele, the federal vaccine mandate is going into effect just as the start of the busy holiday travel season gets underway. That means all TSA employees must be vaccinated in order to work. And as many people prepare to travel for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic, they could face some long lines at airports. MSNBC anchor Yasmin Vasugian joins us now from LaGuardia Airport in New York City. Yasmin, good morning. So let's start with this mandate and specifically the TSA. How many TSA workers have been vaccinated? Are they going to have enough staff to keep those lines down, or are a lot of them going to have to sit out because they are not vaccinated?
Short answer is yes. Secretary Buttigieg was actually on the Meet the Press yesterday telling our colleague Chuck Todd that it's going to be just fine. There's not going to be any backups. 90% of TSA, it seems at this point, are actually vaccinated. So they're prepared. They're ready for the busy holiday season. Honestly, you can't tell by looking behind me because it looks fairly quiet. But just around the corner here, Savannah, you see the security lines. It stretches the entire length of this terminal. I'm not kidding. It's incredibly busy just this morning on a Monday morning on this busy Thanksgiving week. And you look at the numbers because they're going to need all the help that they can get. 53.4 million people are going to be traveling, 48 million of those by car, 4.2, excuse me, by air. That's double what we saw last year. It's looking like these are pre-pandemic numbers. So, of course, airports are going to have to be prepared and ready to be inundated with a lot of folks traveling over the Thanksgiving holiday. Of course, people wanting to get back together with their families, having missed out last year because of this pandemic. And as I said, the lines are already forming and people getting ready to go. And I will say some of the tips that we are getting from folks is arrive early. If you're flying domestic, get here 2 hours early. If you're flying international, 3 hours because of those security lines, Savannah.
Oh, wow. That's definitely a tip. Also, those numbers on the roads. I can imagine what traffic is going to look like, and we know what gas prices have been like. Now, Yasmin, also unrelated to the crowds right now, there was a really scary incident this weekend at Atlanta's airport. A weapon was accidentally discharged at a TSA checkpoint. What are police saying about the incident, and are other airports increasing their security as a result of this incident?
Yeah, so I was on air when this news broke. An individual, Kenny Wells, 42 years of age, was going through TSA. They screened his bag. They saw something in his bag. They took him aside to search his bag, asked him not to touch his belongings. When they opened up his bag, he reached for his firearm, and it accidentally, as the airport authorities are telling us, discharged. At that point, the individual took his firearm and ran out of the airport. So he has yet to be found or apprehended. But of course, that airport was on lockdown for over an hour. There was extreme chaos at the airport. Folks didn't necessarily know what was happening. I spoke to an individual who was there who kind of, experienced all of it and said he had seen some folks being trampled. A young girl was trampled. She was subsequently fine, but nonetheless, it was certainly a chaotic situation for over 60 minutes or so when all of it took place. At this point, though, of course, security folks are on high alert across all airports across the country heading into the holiday season, Savannah.
Absolutely. All right, Yasmin Vasugian, thank you so much.
Of course, the weather is on everyone's mind as we prepare for this big travel week. So let's get a check on your morning news now. Weather?
That's right. Bill Cairns is with us with the latest on holiday weather concerns this week. Hi, Bill. Good morning. How's it looking?
Hey, good Monday morning. I mean, as far as Thanksgiving travel goes, it's like historically there's always a huge storm because it's kind of that time of year we're transitioning into like winter. But this year, I mean, it's not bad at all. I mean, I'm talking about light rain and temperatures, getting cold. So if that's the worst of it, we're good. So the light rain is exiting off the East Coast early today. It's so light, I don't think it's going to cause many airport delays at all. Obviously, when the roads are wet, it's a little slower. And there is a cold blast of air behind this, and that'll probably be, as far as weather stories go, one of the bigger ones leading up to Thanksgiving. The wind chills this morning, it feels like winter. Chicago 9, Minneapolis 8, Green Bay 6. So this is the coldest air of the season that we've seen yet. And of course, when the cold air goes over the Great Lakes this time of year, we will get some lake effect snow. But this isn't going to be a big, huge lake effect snow event either. So even the snow towns are not going to get walloped like they can, especially late November and December. And tomorrow morning, bundle up in the Northeast all the way down to D.C. Wind chills will be in the 20s. So that's definitely winter coats, hat, and gloves for most people. So the forecast for today, not bad. Pretty great weather coast to coast for traveling. All of the major airport hubs are looking good. It'll be a little windy in a few spots that could cause some delays, say like in Atlanta. Chicago's cold, as we mentioned, and that rain will exit the Northeast. Tuesday, thumbs up across the nation. There's a little bit of rain and snow showers in areas of the Rockies, but overall pretty good. And then the big day, they call it the busiest travel day of the year, is Wednesday. And the weather map, can't complain, guys. The East Coast is clear. It's chilly, but it's no rain or snow. Just a little weak storm system in the west. And as far as all of our airports go, maybe some minor delays or maybe minor to moderate because of windy conditions in Denver, Chicago, Detroit. But there's a lot of green in all these major airport hubs. So At least the weather won't be the cause of the delay. Volume could be a different story.
Yeah. Bill can't take credit for your family or anything that happens there, but the weather will be good. All right. Thank you, Bill.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Good news. See you next hour. Thank you.
We're back with an update on Peng Shuai, the Chinese tennis star who had gone missing after accusing a former government official of sexual abuse.
Yeah, the International Olympic Committee says they've made contact with Shuai, who reported being safe and well, but there are still questions surrounding her treatment. Here's NBC News global correspondent Raf Sanchez.
Missing Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai speaking out for the first time in a 30-minute video call with Thomas Bach, the president of the International Olympic Committee, on Sunday. The IOC saying that Peng is safe and well, adding she appeared to be relaxed. The IOC did not provide NBC News a copy of the video. It's Peng's first known contact with anyone outside China since she disappeared 3 weeks ago after making sexual assault allegations against a former senior Communist Party official, and comes hours after Chinese state media released videos allegedly showing her at a tennis tournament. She smiled for the cameras, but said nothing. A similar video showing Peng at a restaurant with her coach and friends. NBC News has not independently verified the footage. The IOC call doing little to ease fears.
What did you make of this call?
I thought it was a sign that the IOC is pretty willing to do what it can to make this issue go away and decide with the Chinese government essentially that there's nothing to see here.
And unlike the Women's Tennis Association, which has threatened to pull out of China altogether, the IOC statement doesn't mention Peng's allegations of sexual assault. Relations between the IOC and China, especially sensitive with the start of the Winter Games just weeks away.
Their statement really did sound like something that would be issued by the Chinese government.
The outcry now coming from the White House, the United Nations, and the biggest stars of global tennis.
We just have to unite and stand together.
And with few convincing answers, the ball still very much in China's court. Raf Sanchez, NBC News.
Let's take a look at what else is making news around the world this morning.
Matt Bodner is with us this morning from Moscow. Good morning, Matt.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Well, we'll start this hour off in Haiti, where last month a group of about 15 missionaries were kidnapped by a Haitian gang. The good news is that 2 of them over the weekend were released. We're getting this from the group that they work with, that is the Christian Aid Ministries out of Ohio. They did not specify which of the 2 were released, but they say that the fact that they are now free raises hopes that the rest of the group will be released without harm. We move on now over to Jerusalem, where an Israeli tour guide was shot dead by a Palestinian teacher yesterday morning near the Temple Mount. This is the first killing of a Jewish Israeli citizen by a Palestinian since back in May. Hamas has claimed that the gunman was a senior member of their group operating in East Jerusalem, and the incident has renewed calls to install metal detectors at the holy site. Worth remembering that this proposal goes back to 2017, and when it first came out, sparked a lot of tensions between the 2 sides. We finish up today on the Italian island of Vulcano, where hundreds of residents have been told to evacuate after a dangerous spike in carbon dioxide levels on the island. This has caused breathing problems for people and pets. Actually, this was all flagged last month when people started reporting some breathing issues, but also some health issues with pets. Often, they will be the first to experience or show any changes in environmental conditions. It is worth noting that Vulcano is volcanic, so there are concerns that CO2 levels may be tied to some kind of activity there. But nothing yet. Back to you guys.
Well, that teacher who changed our lives, and Adele is no exception. The singer performed in a TV special called Adele One Night Only, which aired over the weekend on the UK network ITV. During the show, she was asked by actress Emma Thompson who was her mentor growing up. Adele said it was her English teacher, Miss Thompson, no relation to Emma, who she had not seen since she was 12 years old. She was then caught by surprise. Take a look.
This is what I'm here. She's here tonight.
I'm so proud of you. I didn't know that you were coming. That's okay. It's supposed to be a surprise.
Love love that moment. Adele credits Miss Thompson with getting her into literature. Of course, her new album, 30, has been getting great reviews since it came out on Friday. You said you've listened once.
Once through.
Right.
I gotta go and, I know you've
I've listened more than once. It's very good. And to be loved.
I'm overwhelmed. It's like Taylor Swift, Adele. Gosh, it's
a lot of
emo.
emotions.
Oh my gosh, it is. But you told me your favorite, so I'm going to have to
be loved is the best song on it. So, all right. Moving on now. The Supreme Court could issue a ruling as soon as today on Texas's controversial abortion ban. The court's website says the justices plan to deliver at least one opinion today, which will be the first of its new term.
Yeah, that's right. The nation's highest court heard 2 cases relating to the Texas law, which bans abortions after 6 weeks before many women know they're pregnant. Joining us now to discuss is NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos. Danny, always great to have you and have you physically on set with us.
Thank you.
So there's no indication the ruling today will actually be about the Texas law, but how likely do you think it will be that we'll get that decision today? What are we looking out for?
I hate estimating this because I'm usually wrong. I would say statistically it's unlikely that the case today will be the case, but I have to believe, based even on speeches that justices have given and things they've said, that they are feeling the pressure in an institution that is designed by the Constitution to feel no social pressure. I think the justices are feeling a little bit of a press to get this opinion out.
Especially since they fast-tracked the arguments to begin with. It seems to be the impression. So let's talk a little bit more about this law, the challenges to it. It's probably the most restrictive abortion law in the U.S. Some of the details: it bans most abortions after 6 weeks with no exceptions for rape or incest. Beyond that, it allows private citizens to file lawsuits against anyone who helps a woman get an abortion. So walk us through the legal challenges that were argued before the court.
So the biggest challenge that the court has to contend with is this thorny issue of essentially deputizing private citizens to sue people who provide abortions or who assist in providing abortions. And in a sense, this law isn't really even about Roe v. Wade or Planned Parenthood v. Casey. It is, but that's a secondary issue. If successful, if these legislators have successfully created a law that is immune from court review, then abortion will only be the beginning. It cuts both ways. You could create the same law to outlaw firearms tomorrow, everywhere throughout the United States, or any other controversial issue that lawmakers want to ban, but without or in violation of some constitutional protection.
Danny, also let's quickly look to next week, where the justices are set to hear on Mississippi's abortion law. That bans the procedure after 15 weeks. So tell us why this case is different, why they're also hearing that case, and what the implications are for women's reproductive rights in general.
It's different because the Mississippi statute is a more straightforward attack on Roe v. Wade. In the case of the Texas law, the court has to resolve, how do we even touch this procedurally? How do we actually get our court hands on it, because it's been immunized from review? Meanwhile, the Mississippi decision is a more frontal assault on Roe v. Wade, Planned Parenthood v. Casey. The court has an easier time sinking its judicial teeth into this case.
Danny Ceballos, as always, thanks for being with us.
Turning to Washington, now it's the Senate's turn. Senators have a lot of work to do this week after the House passed President Biden's $1.7 trillion Build Back Better plan. But it won't be an easy road for Democrats. They face an even steeper climb in the Senate with zero room for error. NBCNews.com senior White House reporter Shannon Pettypiece joins us now. So, Shannon, the bill faced unanimous Republican opposition in the House. In the Senate, the president just needs his own party, but he needs every single member. So how are talks going with some of the more moderate Democrats like Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema?
Right. Well, and you mentioned Friday getting this past the House. That was a big win for the White House, but it was winning a battle, not the war. Now comes the real next big battle that's going to be set up in the coming weeks here. There has been a lot of back and forth going on already between the White House and, as you alluded to, 2 key senators, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Senator Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, who have expressed doubts for months now about some of the provisions in this bill. The White House has been in contact with them. There has been a lot of back and forth. They know that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is also working with them to try and get something through. It seems most likely that both of those senators, there is a place where they can get behind a bill. But the question is, how different is that bill going to look from what passed the House? If it does pass the Senate in a different form, it will have to go back to the House, and then will House members still pass that revised bill and send it to the president. And it's a process we're probably going to see through at least the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm not sure if all of that is in the Schoolhouse Rock song. Now, the bill will likely undergo changes in order to pass the Senate. What kinds of provisions are we looking at to be most likely on the chopping block?
So the biggest one is the issue of paid family leave. Initially, there was a provision that would provide 12 weeks of paid leave for people who had a new baby or had to take time off to care for an elderly parent, for example. Then that got stripped out. Then it was put back in by the House, only reduced to just 4 weeks. Senator Joe Manchin has said he is opposed to even the 4 weeks of paid family leave being in there. He does not think this bill is where that should be. He considers it an expansion of social programs. He thinks workers should have to contribute. He has a lot of issues and concerns with that. A lot of other Democrats say this is a deal breaker. This is a once potentially in a generation opportunity to get some sort of paid family leave guaranteed for workers. And it is one of the things they are willing to fight for and go to the mat for. So that, I think, is where one of the biggest tension points is going to be going forward.
So, Shannon, this win in the House for the president comes as he's seeing his lowest approval number since taking office. Does the White House believe passing this bill could help right the ship?
Very much so. They are making the case from the White House perspective that this could have big impacts on the economy by lowering the cost of childcare, to allow women to go back to the workforce, to helping provide relief for people from high medical costs, high prescription drug costs, to provide assistance for people who are trying to take care of an elderly worker with things like added benefits for home care. So they think there's a lot of things that could just help relieve pressure on people. A lot of those things are going to be sort of in the longer term, maybe not programs that get implemented 4 years from now, but programs that are implemented over the course of a year. So it's not going to provide necessarily an immediate release valve, though, for the economic pressures that people are feeling now that are driving the president's approval ratings down. So that's a pressure point the White House is going to continue to have to confront here.
Shannon Pettypiece at the White House. Shannon, thank you.
Now, as deliveries ramp up for the holiday season, a new report shows a troubling rise in fatal crashes among truck drivers. It comes as a new pilot program signed into law as part of President Biden's infrastructure plan, aims to get more truckers on the road by putting drivers as young as 18 behind the wheel. NBC News Now correspondent Zincle Esamoah has more.
18-year-olds will soon be driving America's 18-wheelers across state lines. Safety advocates worry this change may be deadly.
Should 18 to 20-year-olds be driving commercial vehicles across state lines?
No, they shouldn't. They're part of the most dangerous driving population.
First on NBC, new data revealing a 35.8% increase in truck crash fatalities from 2010 to 2019 across all speed limits. This matters because Biden's infrastructure bill, signed November 15th, included the Drive Safe Act pilot program.
It involves 400 hours of training, top-of-the-line safety equipment. To participate in the program, they already have to have a CDL and a relatively clean record.
The 3-week program training 18 to 20-year-olds on a rolling basis, up to 3,000 drivers at a time. An apprentice who completes training and meets benchmarks can drive across state lines, according to the American Trucking Associations. This is the Institute for Safer Trucking finds. 16 to 20-year-old truck drivers saw a nearly 267% increase in fatal crashes from 2010 to 2019. Today, requirements for obtaining a commercial driver's license vary state by state. The American Trucker Association is in favor of the new pilot program, saying as many as 80,000 truckers are needed, even as program critics like Todd Spencer say hundreds of thousands of commercial driver's licenses are issued each year.
The problem isn't a shortage of workers. The problem is the job.
Most truckers are paid by the mile, the profession often requiring long hours and distances. The ATA acknowledges challenges with retention, but cites a different issue.
It's because drivers are in such high demand and they're jumping from fleet to fleet for sign-on bonuses and more money.
The new pilot program trains students in trucks with unique safety mechanisms.
After they get their license, they can go into any truck that doesn't have the automatic emergency braking or some of the other safety systems.
In a statement to NBC, Senator Todd Young said in part that the program, quote, will address the driver shortage and make our roads safer. The Department of Transportation did not immediately respond to our request for comment.
And we need to be taking a more balanced look at highway safety overall. The vast majority of over-the-road truckers right now struggle every night to find some place to get off the road, to get needed sleep. These are things that our policymakers, our lawmakers should address.
The Drive Safe pilot program now moving down the road.
Our thanks to Zinkley for that report. Now the push for more truckers comes as the American Trucking Association estimates there are some 80,000 drivers short of what they need in order to keep goods moving freely across the country. Welcome back. Time for our CNBC Money Minute, the biggest financial headlines of the day and why they matter to you.
Savannah Henao joins us this morning. Hey, Savannah.
Hey guys, good morning. So Disney World has put its COVID vaccine mandate for employees on hold after Florida's governor signed a measure restricting such policies. Disney says it still believes its approach to mandatory vaccines has been the right one, and more than 90% of its Florida-based workers are fully vaccinated. Executives from Disney and other companies met with White House officials last month to discuss President Biden's vaccine requirement amid concerns it could make labor shortages even worse. Gas prices are holding steady ahead of the busy holiday travel season. The average price of regular staying at $3.49 a gallon over the past 2 weeks. That's still $1.31 higher than it was a year ago. Analysts say the spiking cost of ethanol has kept gas prices from dropping. And Spotify has removed the shuffle button as a default option from album pages, forcing songs to be played in order. The move apparently coming at the request of Adele, who asked the songs on her new album 30 be played in the right order. Spotify got the message, tweeting to Adele, "Anything for you." While the shuffle button no longer appears on the album page, the option is still visible when you click to view a specific track. Guys, back to you.
You really do need to hear her talk about her divorce in a specific order.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I would be into that. Like, I like that it's so curated that she feels that way about it. But, I mean, I guess
power of Adele.
She's powerful.
All right, thank you, Savannah.
You got it. Now, with Thanksgiving this week, many food banks across the country are worried about being able to help those in need.
They were already facing increased demand caused by the pandemic. Now, surging food prices and supply chain issues are making it even harder to keep pantry shelves stocked during the holidays. NBC News senior business correspondent Stephanie Rule has more.
With just a few days before Thanksgiving,
Buenos dias, good morning.
Volunteers at the West Side Campaign Against Hunger in New York City are getting ready to offer holiday meals to more people.
Do you want bananas?
In 2019, it served over 25,000 people during the year. Since the pandemic, that number has more than tripled.
So even though we're starting to come out of the pandemic, the need is still just as great?
The need has not slowed down one bit.
Yet even as more people need assistance, it's only gotten tougher for food banks like this one because of the same supply chain disruptions and soaring inflation everyone is confronting.
Thanksgiving is right around the corner. Are there going to be enough turkeys, and what do they cost?
We purchased turkeys last year. It was $12 for every turkey we bought. This year it's $19 is the price. We went from $5,000 to saying we're going to purchase $7,000, so you do the math.
It's not only higher prices. Getting food to people who need it most has become more challenging because of a shortage of trucks and drivers.
If you don't get your delivery of eggs and milk and butter from the wholesalers, what happens to these women out here?
If they were dependent on that food to feed their families, our wholesalers made it, impossible for them to do that. If you see a line around the block for a pantry, that's a problem.
It's a similar story across the country, where food banks are coping with a surge in demand for services. In the first year of the pandemic, they reported a 55% increase on average. For these organizations, it's straining budgets right as they're also paying more.
We have to purchase more food than normally what was donated.
The Los Angeles Mission expects to serve a record 600,000 meals this year.
That's the biggest challenge right now is food. Food costs have doubled.
At the same time, donations it normally receives from grocery stores, restaurants, and the community are down. In October, Troy tweeted the mission was out of canned food.
How is that even possible?
Well, because that's what's happening right in the pandemic. People are not able to give at the same rate and cadence that they normally were giving.
At the Neighbor's Place in central Wisconsin,
we're seeing less meat right now, and I would expect that that's probably going to continue. That I don't believe we're going to run out of food, but what we have, we'll have less variety.
But the problem goes beyond the food on their shelves.
Fuel costs are going to hit us hard.
This year, the nonprofit planned to break ground on a new warehouse, but a lack of steel and glass delayed that until next March. And with envelopes in short supply, a pre-order saved them potential disruption in donor giving.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
As organizations feel the strain this holiday season, there's concern crucial support will continue to decline if Americans continue to feel the pinch.
Maybe this is the year that people should support their local nonprofit
and embrace the gift of giving back.
That was Stephanie Rule reporting. Now, another problem food banks are facing is a shortage of volunteers. Between concerns over another spike in coronavirus cases and people wanting to spend more time with their families, food banks say the number of volunteers signing up to help pass out food is also down this year.
Technology used to identify skin cancer is advancing, but not for everyone. A new study shows artificial intelligence databases used to detect cancer contain very few images of people with darker skin.
Experts say that makes it harder to detect cancer in people of color. CNBC reporter Bertha Coombs reports on a video game that could help fix the problem.
Working on a dermatology game has been eye-opening for Dr. Shraddha Desai.
And I had to ask, is that really a digital render or is that a photograph? We can see all these conditions now in different skin types, even if we haven't been exposed to them in real life or during training.
Top Derm is a game from Level X, a medical video game maker tapped by NASA to develop healthcare training games for astronauts. But it was dermatologists who pushed the firm to go skin deep.
We used existing game technology and visual effects technology, basically the cutting edge tech to render skin in a video game, and we built on top of that.
A key part of the game helping doctors see how skin conditions affect people of color. Diseases like skin cancer are more rare in African Americans and Hispanics, but often more deadly.
They're going to be in your hands and feet, maybe even the nail, and these are things that we normally wouldn't see in Caucasian skin.
Or often in textbooks. As a result, as in the case of reggae star Bob Marley, who died of melanoma, skin cancer in blacks and Latinos can go undiagnosed. In Marley's case, a spot on his toenail mistaken for a bruise. Addressing such healthcare blind spots has become a front burner issue since the pandemic and last year's social reckoning. Schools more focused on broadening training in dermatology, says Dr. Susan Taylor, who's helped develop a more inclusive curriculum.
The end game is when all dermatology textbooks integrate skin of color into each and every chapter. When every lecture, nationally and internationally, integrates people with skin of color. When we don't need a separate field. That, to me, is success.
Success for Level X, playing a small part in that.
That was CNBC's Bertha Coombs reporting. Well, now for some big news in the sports world. Tiger Woods is back on the golf course, sharing a video that shows him taking a full swing.
Yeah, it's just 9 months after that devastating car crash put his life and his career in jeopardy. MSNBC anchor Yasmin Vasugian has the details.
Tiger Woods is back on the green. The 45-year-old golf legend tweeting this short video on Sunday, wearing a black compression sleeve on his right leg. The caption, "Making progress." The video teeing up rumors of a comeback.
We're in play for maybe another all-time great sports comeback.
This is the first time Woods has been spotted swinging since his high-speed car accident in February that caused severe injury to his right leg and foot. Woods has offered no medical updates in months. In April, he posted this photo, and last month, he was spotted standing freely at his son's golf tournament. Woods has bounced back from injury before, returning to the links to win his 5th Masters in 2019 after major spine surgery.
How far along in his progress did he look in that tweet?
We didn't see him at max speed with a driver, but it looked good. One swing, 2 words, 3 seconds. That's all it took for Tiger Woods to turn the sports world upside down.
The latest video offering fans 3 seconds of hope that Tiger could come roaring back yet again. Yasmin Vasugian, NBC News.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.